Where's your head? Where's your soul, your heart? Where's your love, your care? Where's your life, your stars?
Saba is from right here in Chicago, but with mixtapes like 2014's Comfort Zone, features on Chance's coloring book, Jamila's Heaven, and No Name's Telephone, and his newest album, Bucket List Project, which is making all sorts of best of 2016 lists, including my own. Saba is poised to take over the world. I am so glad to have him in the studio. Welcome, Saba, to Vocalo. Welcome back, I should say.
Yeah, welcome back. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're 22. You're out here making everybody look bad. Tell me a little bit about being even younger than you are now and discovering that your way with words was on a higher plane than other people your age.
I don't know. I used to really like creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my class, like when I was younger, and I was in music, but I wasn't, early on, like I probably got into music around like 8 or 9.
Well, you grew up with a musical family, so
Yeah.
you couldn't have gotten around it.
Yeah, exactly. But the actual writing of music, I didn't really have a passion for until like much later in my life. So I was making music, but it was it wasn't really focused so much on the writing until like I started going to these classes, like, and English was always like my favorite class.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I hated the reading part, but when it was like creative writing, like stuff like that, like I always was like really focused and really trying to, write short stories like with these like crazy plot twists and like stuff like that. Like, but I was really like engaged in that class specifically. So when I, later on I started doing these open mics and stuff and seeing like poetry and stuff like that. That's kind of where I, began like really like taking writing more serious, I guess. But yeah, it was probably like 15, 16 in that like age range where like I really like began like to try to focus on writing a lot more.
You were lucky enough, and we are lucky enough as Chicagoans interested in creative writing to have outlets like Young Chicago Authors to kind of focus us, to give us prompts and kind of rescue us from ourselves when it comes to that sort of writing. Tell me about your time in Young Chicago Authors, because that was a program that I partook in when I was very young. But I wonder what, how it's evolved and how you evolved within that program.
A lot. I think just one, that was the first time, like I had been making my music like my whole life pretty much, but it had never gone past my basement.
Yeah.
And when the internet got really popular and like even being in high school, like I would be putting it on the internet and like trying to, I didn't really understand any like sense of scene, any sense of industry, any sense of like getting further than the basement that I was creating the music in. So
and that's where a lot of people's kind of goals stop.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I made this project, now what to do with it. So Young Chicago Authors and places like YOUmedia for me were like the first places where I was able to perform and to share what I had been doing in my basement. So it also was the first like realization, like, oh man, there are other people who can do what I can do, and there are other people who can do what I do even better than what I like. That was the first time where I had been like really challenged, like as far as like creatively. Like I had never really felt like, I don't know, I just always thought like, like I'm so good, there's nobody that can do it. Like being like 16, 15, 16 is like, yeah, man, hip hop, yeah.
But isn't that something that we kind of want from our rappers? Isn't that kind of sense of overconfidence, that braggadociousness? That's baseline hip hop right there.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like places like Young Chicago Authors like shut it down for me. It was like, oh,
that's quite enough.
Yeah. But yeah, that was really the first sense where I seen like like-minded individuals, like people who are like focused on their writing and focused on their music and really doing stuff in, having shows. Like that was the thing that I had never seen. So, it was like my first shows that I had gotten booked for were through Young Chicago Authors and just being cool with Kevin Koval and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's crazy to see, you see Chance and you see No Name and Mick Jenkins. Like all of these people are like people that I just met casually, at YOUmedia and Young Chicago Authors. But it's I don't know, it's kind of amazing to see, and I think a lot of the best talent, like when you ask me like what's changed about Young Chicago authors, is just like really like it's still evolving, and a lot of the best talent, like I still go, and you know it's still that energy, and it's a very genuine, you know, like it's just teenagers writing, or I mean not even limited to teenagers, because sometimes there are older people, like but it's just a group of people that are just really writing what they feel, and that's all you really ask for in music, you know.
Now let's fast forward to the Bucket List Project. The title kind of gives away the theme. People tend to associate, though, bucket lists with, you know, the old folks who have regrets, and there's just a few more things that they need to get done. But this album is full of positivity and youth, and positivity in the face of challenge. How did you get to this place from the headspace that you found yourself in after releasing Comfort Zone?
Yeah. For me, it was honestly the kind of gray area after Comfort Zone, not knowing what was next, trying to work on music, trying to figure my life out, like aside from music, like just kind of like everything happening at once, and in the midst of that, like
that's youth, young man.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of crazy. Like, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 months after Comfort Zone, I lost my uncle, who was like the first household death like I've ever experienced in my life. So it was like, I don't know, it really like affected me like in a really different way, to the point where like I wasn't really super inspired, wasn't really trying to make music, and then, you know, comparing everything to Comfort Zone, like I don't know, it was just a very bad space to be in, and I don't know, I think I kind of got lucky like with just the idea of making the Bucket List Project. I don't know, it was like I always keep in my notes on my iPhone like a bunch of potential like ideas that I maybe will explore in the future, and Bucket List was always one of them. Like if you listen to some of the 2012 stuff I released, it might be like a hint of like Bucket List or something like that on there. So for me, it was like one of those ideas I always wanted to explore, but it wasn't until like I lost my uncle where I was like, that's when Bucket List became that much more real to me.
When like mortality is looking you in the face.
Exactly. So that, you know, it really came from that space, and then just looking at the city, and like how we say, you know, that genius is like it's really deep down, and like you know, just the way the world reacts to that. A lot of people are afraid of that. And I know, you know, being from the west side of Chicago, so many people like, and I was able to watch it happen. Like a lot of people lost that innocence, that childhood, like really quick, like 13, 14, and it was like over. So I think I wanted to make something focused on that, like a Bucket List Project, not so much focused on me. Like, I mean, I guess I'm the storyteller behind it. Like I am the voice behind it, but I wanted to focus it on the people around me, you know, the people in the city, the people in the world. Like I wanted it to be more about the listener than the artist.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the West Side. One of my favorite tracks, and maybe it's because I'm from Chicago, but one of my favorite tracks is Church Liquor Store, where you and No Name paint this very vivid picture of the Austin neighborhood, which, you know, I'm from 83rd and South Shore, so I recognize a lot of those themes. I recognize a lot of those blocks. Tell me why it was important to you to kind of visualize for people a part of the city that a lot of people who aren't natives of here, a lot of visitors to the city, don't necessarily see.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's time to get real.
For me, writing Church Liquor Store, which I actually wrote on the way home from YCA.
Oh, wow.
When I was like 19. I wrote it not really realizing what exactly I was writing. I didn't realize that it was nearly as deep as it was, but I was on the bus, and
what bus line?
I was on the Division bus 70.
Has there ever been a more aptly named street
than Division?
Division. It is a division at parts of it.
Yeah. So I was on the division bus, and I was, Young Chicago Authors is like Wicker neighborhood. So I was going from, the last stop. My house is the last stop.
Mm-hmm.
So Austin to
what, Ashland and
to Ashland. You're able to see so many different neighborhoods.
Oh yeah.
So when I got past like Central, like further west, it was literally
church, liquor store, barbershop,
yeah.
dreadhead.
It was literally in exact order, like the chorus to that song. So it really like it wrote itself. Really.
I'm there. Now, another great part of this album that I really enjoy is the voicemails that you get from all sorts of people. I mean, I too would like to smoke a blunt with Beyonce. I really
I don't smoke, but if I did, I would.
Asked?
Beyonce, like you almost have to do it for. I mean, we talking about Beyonce.
I know. I would do what?
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
girl, you want some angel dust? Yes, I do, Beyonce. I had no idea that you got wet. Now, how did you go about recruiting who you would have leave you these voicemails? Because you got family members, but you also got like Lupe Fiasco leaving you voicemails. How was that selection process?
I had a list of probably over 100 people that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And maybe a list of over 50 people that I did ask. So actually deciding who I used was like the hardest part, probably the whole process.
Yeah. Then don't ever get married because you'll have to have a guest list, and that will drive you crazy. If this part you didn't like,
I think having a guest list for a show is already hard. It's already hard enough. But some people had similar things, so it was like, all right, well let's just cut one.
Yeah.
Two, some people like it felt like it was almost too serious, like. I want to get out the hood. I want to do, I want to graduate. I want to make my mom proud. Like, and it was like,
I don't know why I'm laughing. Those are good things.
Yeah. Very genuine. Very, I feel like very implied though.
Yeah. Very
implied. Like we all want to do similar things to that. And then some, I think, I don't know. Some of them I tried to just, like also like we're making music, so I wanted it to segue into the song. So some of them I kept based on that, but I know I wanted people that I didn't know was the thing that was really important to me, like reaching out to fans, like having them send in their bucket list. So a lot of the people on the project I don't know actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I also wanted people that were really close to me, like my dad and like Fresh and Jamal, like who are like two of my like closest friends that are incarcerated. And then like I don't know, Lupe was just like a shot, like let's see if Lupe will send one. And then he did, and it was like, okay, I have to use this one. But yeah, I wanted like some relatable, some like that you never heard of, some people that you're like, oh my God, I can't, Lupe Chance the Rapper, what? Like this is what they want to do, just because I wanted, like everybody, like no matter what you do, like it's like these are artists who are like very successful and toured the world however many times and like able to do pretty much whatever they want at this point. But they still have dreams and goals and aspirations, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to them specifically,
Yeah, and it all comes together in a great album. Like I said, I put this record on one of my 2016 best of lists, and I know lots of other people did too. Thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to hear what you've got coming up down the line. You're going everywhere, but we're not letting you go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, like you're still ours. You're still Chicago.
Some snaps for that.
Thank you.
Some poetry snaps.
I'm an artist, problem, what you call it? I'm an honest artist, so they honor. Or we fighting fans like run artists. I'm the coldest out, I'm so arctic. And I'm from the same place the solids come from. And I heard it like Sonic, where my songs and all of my son is.